Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foundations in American Democracy. This week, we'll be looking at an introduction to American politics. So basically, what we're going to look at is the foundations of politics and political science. We're going to explain why politics matters, and we're going to emphasize the importance of becoming politically informed citizens. With that, we're going to try to meet 5 goals in this introduction to American politics. First, as we said before, we're going to define politics and political science. We're going to explain why politics is studied. We're going to understand or develop our understanding of American politics. We're going to learn how to become politically informed. And then we're going to explore some political typologies, what builds our political beliefs and orientations. So let's start off with trying to understand what is politics. Now, it should be noted that politics is described as the way societies organize social affairs, especially how scarce resources are distributed and how power is gained and maintained. With that, we know that there are important key features to politics. Politics involves policymaking by governments, conflict and competition among groups with different interests, and it also involves power, authority, and legitimacy within institutions and society. With that, we can keep in mind that politics is about who gets power, how decisions are made, and how resources are distributed. Now, let's define political science. What is political science? Now, it should be noted that political science is an academic study of politics and political conflict. It seeks to understand political behavior, institutions, and systems using evidence and analysis. With that said, we know that political science is not just opinions about politics. It is a systematic study based on evidence. So now that we know the definition between politics and political science, why study politics? We know that political science aims to create knowledge and develop generalization about political behavior through evidence. So we study politics because it will help us or people in general to understand government decisions. It helps us to analyze conflicts and public issues. It allows us to become informed citizens, and it also allows us to participate responsibly in democracy. Let's think about it. If we use political science to understand politics, we're going to be better able to understand the outcomes of elections, like, the one that's coming up this year. We can better analyze public policy debates between the 2 major parties in Congress, or even a presidential debate is happening. We can also understand the rise and fall of social movements within the United States. And we can also determine how media really influences politics. So if we understand political science and use it in that way, we are going to be better informed about these major things that affect current events. Now, what is American politics? Because that's the focus of this course. American politics studies political institutions, ideas, and behaviors within the United States and in relation to other countries. It emphasizes mainly domestic political dynamics. So we find that the main topics that would fall under American politics focus on Congress, the presidency, courts, elections, political parties, public opinion, and political culture, all of which we'll cover over the course of this course. So, how do we become politically informed? How do we build political awareness and citizenship in the United States? I would say the best way to discuss this is to just basically say that Americans are not well informed politically, even though they still participate in democracy and hold very strong opinions. I would like for you guys to watch this lecture, or should I say this video that was done, I think by Jimmy Kimmel about 10 years ago, which was called 6 of 1, Obamacare versus the Affordable Care Act, where he asked people, which did they support? Obamacare and or the Affordable Care Act. And it became apparent that people generally did not know that Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act were the same. And we see it even now today when some of the subsidies that were supporting the Affordable Care Act expired in late 2025, that people then realized that, yes, Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act were the same. But with that said, I would like for you to realize that many people reacted differently to the same policy depending on the wording and the political framing. As I said, Obamacare versus the Affordable Care Act. So in us being politically informed, I want to know that citizens have the responsibility to seek accurate information, think critically, and participate responsibly. But how do people become politically informed? The main way in which people become politically informed is through political thinking, which basically means the process of reaching informed political conclusions. Now, there's actually some factors that, provides obstacles to this happening. This may be a bias or lack of objectivity. People jump into conclusions. People's confirmation bias, where you only accept facts that you agree with. That idea that we have sometimes misleading media and even government restrictions on information. Let's think about it right now. When you go on sites like Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you find that there tends to be a lot of social media misinformation about different facts. And you have AI such as Grok or otherwise pointing out these errors. So that can actually affect our political thinking. We find that a lot of our citizens are living in echo chambers where they're only listening to maybe influencers or newscasts that only support their worldview. And we see that even now, our media has developed into becoming what we call partisan news outlets, where you have, for instance, maybe CNN on one side, Fox on the other, the conservatives versus the liberals, and people find themselves turning towards one or the other and not listening to multiple news outlets to help them to think politically, right? So these are some of the things that help us. But what can we do to overcome this? It should be noted that political science provides theories and frameworks that actually help to explain political behavior and organize information logically. A theory basically is a logical explanation about how the world works. And we know that theories help people to interpret facts, analyze data, and stay open-minded. With that said, one of the biggest encouragements I give to my students is not to think of themselves as Democrat or Republican or red or blue, but think about your political typology. What actually shapes your political beliefs, that somehow it may be along a spectrum or within different quadrants. So you're not, you don't identify yourself just by a political party. So I encourage my students to take a political coordinates test. One of the best known ones are provided by the IDRlabs.com. They have a political coordinates test that allows students to answer particular questions. Some they may be conservative on, some they may be liberal on. And at the end of it, allows them to find out which quadrant they may fall under. Are they really maybe social liberals, conservative? Are they social democrats or libertarian, right? Because again, politics and our beliefs are along a spectrum. It's not black or white. So there tends to be some gray along the way. So I encourage my students to take this test, because when you understand your political typology, it helps you to understand your ideological position. It allows you to recognize different viewpoints and even reflect on how beliefs affect political thinking. So as we end today's introduction to American politics, these are some core takeaways I'd like you to have. That we know that politics shapes everyday life. Political science studies politics systematically. Democracy depends on informed citizens, that critical thinking is essential to in politics, that bias and misinformation can distort understanding, and that political theories help to explain political behavior. I want you to also know, or to leave today's lecture knowing that informed citizenship and critical thinking is important to a thriving democracy. Thank you for joining me today. I am Dr. Nicole Warmington Cranston.